Today we're diving into one of the most important topics for an investor looking at Vietnam as an investment destination. The 5 most common mistakes made when establishing a new company in Vietnam. Now, Vietnam is an exciting market. It's growing, full of opportunities, but also has distinct risks and challenges, particularly if you don't follow and understand the legal and compliance obligations in Vietnam. And to be truth be told, a lot of investors get this wrong, seasoned professionals included. So let's go through the 5 biggest mistakes, what they mean in practice, and how to avoid them. So the first big mistake is the DICA, the Direct Investment Capital Account. This is a specific bank account for contributing the foreign invested capital into the company in Vietnam. When you establish a company in Vietnam, your charter capital, your equity, your share capital, your charter capital is the amount that you commit on your investment certificate that you will bring into the country from abroad. It's part of the approval for a foreign investor. Now, that needs to be sent into Vietnam to a special bank account called the DICA, and it must be done within 90 days of company establishment. That 90 days is critical. So this is where the mistakes start to happen. Many investors don't realize the transfer must become directly from the investor's account, a foreign bank account. It can't come from a nominee, a third party, account in Vietnam, and it must come from the company itself, not even another company in the group. So whatever the name is on the registration certificate, the approval from the investment authority is where the transfer must come from a bank account abroad. Some investors seek to wire funds in small portions. Now, even though that is possible, it causes confusion and causes concerns. And that by itself can be a trap with the bank fees, and when they come out, the capital account not adding up, so you haven't fully contributed the amounts, along with the banks not accepting amounts that don't match the investment certificate. So wherever possible, the full amount contributed as one makes the compliance elements so much simpler and so much easier. Now, as I mentioned before, there is a fixed 90-day deadline. Miss the 90 days and your bank account can be locked, and you are not able to both contribute your capital or functionally operate the company into the future. It's not something that you want to encounter, and it's not something you want to happen. It is a very problematic situation. 90 days should be met in all instances. And most importantly, the DICA is not just a random account. It's the official channel the capital comes in, but also repatriation of your profits, and if you sell the company, how your capital comes out. Get it wrong at the start, you can't get those funds out, and you need to understand and make sure you manage that account appropriately. It's a very important account. So treat the DICA seriously. It's not just a formality, it is the financial backbone of the investment in Vietnam, and it's your treasury tool for ensuring your company achieves your objectives. The second common mistake is using nominees. Unlike other countries in the region, nominee structures are not formally legally recognized in Vietnam. And yet we still see investors using them as a primary investment structure, and particularly working around restricted business lines where they're putting things at risk. So let's look at the risks. Since nominee structures don't create a true legal ownership relationship, your capital can easily become trapped. If you don't own the business, if you haven't legally invested the money yourself, therefore you can't get the funds back out, and therefore you have a significant problem with what you believed was your investment. You can't enforce your ownership rights because you don't have those rights. Nominees are often marketed as a workaround for restricted sectors. However, you do not want to build your company structure and your investment structure on shaky ground that does not have legal enforceability. We've seen situations where nominees refuse to transfer their ownership even though they acknowledge that there's a nominee relationship, or the authorities challenge the arrangement because of the nominee structure. So ultimately, your investor can be left with nothing. If the registered owner refuses to follow instructions, you can't challenge that because the registered owner is the owner, not who they represent, because that is not enforceable. So in short, even though there are restricted sectors, for example, areas like logistics, tourism, real estate, the correct approach is putting the appropriate structures in place with the right rights and responsibilities to make sure you can deal with both the requirements, but also not expose yourself to nominees in a structure, which is never the right way to go. There are always legal workarounds. Nominees is not one of them. The bottom line, nominees might look simple, but they are a ticking time bomb. Mistake number 3, misunderstanding the role of the legal representatives. In Vietnam, every company must have at least one resident legal representative. This person's not just a figurehead. They hold legal power, real legal power. They can sign contracts, represent the company to authorities, and are personally responsible for compliance. So where investors go wrong is they appoint local staff or service providers to act as legal representative without understanding the risks and responsibilities. The nominee legal representative doesn't understand the business, and the business is giving power to someone without proper authority, instructions, and the risk of someone else running your business is real. We also see them appoint companies setting up to appoint a foreign non-resident director, thinking it's fine, we'll sort that out later. And when the company is established, because the foreign resident director does not meet the residency requirements, the company can't complete registrations and it can't operate, and is in a situation where it is probably going to be non-compliant with the deadlines. A smarter approach is to make sure that you have the right company charter at the start. Having the right company charter should allow you to have different legal representatives with different capacities. The resident legal representative may simply have basic signing powers, and they may just be there to make sure that they can meet local compliance. However, real power and full authority may sit in the non-resident legal representative. That means that you are meeting both the requirements of law and your governance and operating requirements. This way you get your compliance on the ground without giving up absolute correct control. Remember, your resident legal representative must have a VNE ID, a Vietnamese digital ID. That means that you can't simply send a foreign individual to Vietnam and just call them a resident legal representative if they do not have their ID or not already resident. So that's really important, and hence why getting the charter right and having the right appointments makes sure that you can run and control the company the way that you are planning or need to be for governance and for investment purposes. Mistake number 4 is confusion regarding charter capital and investment capital. The charter capital is the amount you are legally committed to inject in the company, and as we discussed, it must come in the DICA within 90 days. That is the equity portion of your investment. The term investment capital is the total funds that you will provide to a project, to the company, including loan funding and equity funding, your charter capital and your loan capital. You must evidence all the capital that's going to come in. So many companies don't commit enough capital because they don't have the ability to evidence that. The problem is that if you are going to do an industrial park project or similar projects, you need to invest sufficient capital, investment capital, into the project to get your operating license for certain sectors. Not enough, you won't get your license. If you have too much and you are committed to bring too much funds in, particularly the charter capital, you may have trapped capital that you are bringing in that you don't want to bring in. And getting that balance right is really important. Another part that's overlooked is the loan requirements, that if you are bringing loans as part of your investment capital portion is a loan portion, you must understand the registration requirements with the State Bank of Vietnam, and whenever any payments or any transactions occur, you must make sure that that is following the appropriate notification and approvals from the State Bank. So it's really important to understand how much funds you'll need to bring the funds in the right way, what portions charter capital and the timelines to bring that in, and the timelines to bring the total investment capital that you have. Planning the right balance is important, and it also comes back to the repatriation. Are you using dividend repatriation? Are you doing loan repatriation? The treasury management is important. So it's not just about the money, but the legal structure, your timelines, and the operational practicalities of your business in Vietnam. Finally, mistake number 5, business lines. In Vietnam, a company can only operate and earn income from business lines to which it is registered with the authorities. If you don't register the right business lines, you can't operate. You can't earn income and you can't incur expenses in relation to those activities. Keep in mind, many business lines require sub-licenses. And if you have a business line with additional requirements, if you don't meet them, you still can't operate in those sectors. So the business lines is about the right business lines and meeting and understanding the sub-license conditions where they apply. You need both of them. And of course, there are certain business lines restricted for foreign investors, and understanding what that is, particularly if you're buying an existing business with those restricted business lines, you may not be able to invest or need to remove those lines to do the investment, which may put the whole process at risk. Now, many investors try to say, we'll just add business lines later, which can happen. It is not a difficult process to apply business lines often. However, certain business lines have requirements. If you're doing recruitment, for example, the head of the company must have certain experience and qualifications. Now, that may damage the whole business structure if you are doing other things and you didn't plan for that in the first place. So planning and understanding the whole strategy for business lines, not just the now, and make sure that if you are adding business lines later, you understand the requirements at all times. So the lesson is, think through the business activities that you want over the entire business structure and plan at the front end. As a quick bonus, the post-establishment requirements should not go ignored for a company. If you set up a company, not only do you have your 90-day DICA that we've talked about, there are significant other obligations, generally within the first 30 days. Tax, VAT registrations, employment and insurance registrations. Do not ignore them. You can be caught out and can't face penalties and other business problems. So just don't ignore those either. So to recap, the 5 most common mistakes that investors make when establishing a company in Vietnam are: 1, misunderstanding the direct investment capital account, the DICA, where your capital must be contributed within 90 days. Second is using nominee shareholders and nominee structures. Third is appointing the wrong legal representative or not having the correct charter and the responsibilities for your legal representatives. Fourth is confusing charter capital and investment capital and getting the mix wrong or getting the understanding wrong. And fifth is not properly registering business lines or not understanding the business line conditions that exist when starting up a company in Vietnam. Avoiding these mistakes will save you a huge amount of time, money, and stress. Vietnam is a fantastic place to invest, but it rewards those who do it properly, and it can punish those who don't follow the rules or don't understand their requirements. I hope you found this useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Put any comments you have down below, any questions. I'm happy to reply to those, and I'll look forward to talking to you next time about investing in Vietnam.